Thank you, Catherine, for getting everybody up here. Thank you all for participating and being here again. All right, so this is Love Without Limits 2026. So we have estimates off of last year because we still have some coming in. As you guys know, maybe some of you guys did it last year and years past. We have volunteers signing up like every day. So we still have some volunteers signing up right now. And I expect to have some volunteers showing up the day before, or some even trying to sign up that day of too. So last year we had about 300, same thing with Kings and Queens too. Kings and Queens expect that again too, because they're usually there. So this year it'll be on February 21st, 2026, and it'll be at the Horseshoe again. So it'll be in the main building, the pavilion, that large one right there, but it'll be from 6 to 9 p.m. this year. And then if you're volunteering, please try and arrive no later than 5 p.m. Last year we had kind of issues because it was on a Friday, so it was just hard. I mean, trying to get there at 5 p.m. on a Friday is very tough because, I mean, everybody works, right? So same thing, if you get there at 5 p.m., especially if you're a buddy, so that way you can make sure that nobody's getting left out. So this year, we'll have a diagram up pretty soon, but we'll be checking in instead of in this, like kind of in the front, we'll be checking in Hall A instead. So whenever you walk in, there's 3 large halls. It'll be the far left one. Yeah, so last year, that's where the karaoke was. We're moving karaoke to the center, and we're gonna do check-in in Hall A. It'll be right there, right where it says registration. King and Queen, there's their seating right there once they're checked in. Buddy, if you're gonna be a buddy, then we'll have special seating right there, and then we'll wait to get those paired up, and then we can enjoy the night once that happens. Okay. So, every king and queen will have a buddy. Sometimes a buddy will be paired with 2 kings and queens. So every king and queen will at least have half a buddy. So years past, it's been red carpet, paparazzi, everything like that. We're still getting with schools. Usually they're the ones that, try and treat it like that and have people out there with cameras, really make them feel like they're walking into some kind of like movie premiere or something like that, We'll have boutonnieres, corsages, we'll have stations for that, along with carriage and limousine rides. We're still working on process and everything, but it looks like we'll be good on those. And then years past, still swag bags too. Okay, so, and that was one of the things that we talked about was moving, was in Hall A, or Hall B, I'm sorry, we'll be doing that karaoke room, and then they'll have dinner, and that'll be courtesy of Chick-fil-A, just like in years past and everything like that. And then we'll have a crowning ceremony, which will go on later in the night during the dance. And then if we can just get the map again real quick, Melissa. So last year we did registration all in Hall B, but we're actually gonna move the boutonnieres, corsages, crowns, and tiaras right there along that wall in Hall B, and we'll have the food right there too, along with tables. And then we'll have karaoke on the far end. We'll have projector too, so we can have some people singing along with the lyrics. And then Hall S, which is the last hall, will be just for dancing. We'll have tables there, of course, too. But we'll just dedicate that to dancing. We'll have DJ on the stage. We'll try and get some lights and everything and make sure that they're not. Another thing is that sometimes the music was a little too loud. It was a little overstimulating. This year, we'll make sure that it's actually pretty good. And then, pretty good. Not great, pretty good. But this year, we actually had to move the respite room. I don't know if anybody last year was able to experience a respite room last year, but it was done by Catherine and our music therapist from the CTC. It's a great job. If you were able to go there, and it was a good way to get out of the noise. But it was really quiet, and it was actually pretty fun to rest. This year, we'll have to do it in the meeting rooms because the Horseshoe isn't allowing anybody in the green rooms unless you're a concert. Even if I get up there and sing, they're not going to consider it a concert. But we'll have the respite room right here in the meeting rooms, and then right next door to that, we'll have EMT. I hope nobody has to visit the EMT, but if you do, it's right there. I think that's you. No, it's me. Okay. All right, and we can do next slide. Okay, so like I said, volunteer check-in will be at 5 p.m. We'll be in Hall A. All you gotta do is so I will say this, if you're with an organization like Spectrum of Solutions, Rock House, Friendship House, anything like that, we'll have stations set up for that because a lot of the kings and queens are associated with these organizations. If you're an employee or if you're a volunteer of any of these organizations, try and go to that table so that way we can get you as quick as possible. Okay. All right, and then if you're a buddy, what we're gonna do is whenever you get paired with your king and queen, they'll have a badge and it's got their name tag and everything. And then on the back will be like emergency contact information. So if you guys have to call like their parent or anybody from, like, for example, you get a client from Spectrum of Solutions, you have to call somebody from there, it'll be on the back right there. Also, we'll have a lot of EMT, we'll have, you know, a lot of employees around, so you're never alone whenever you're with them. And then if you're doing like registration, if you're doing anything, if you're helping Chick-fil-A pass out food, we'll show you where to go once you get there. And then kings and queens will get there at 6. They'll do the same check-in. The only thing is that, like on that map, there's gonna be a different area to where they're gonna be seated at, but they're still gonna be in Hall A. So we'll have runners, and the runner will go and grab the king and queen once we'll go and grab the buddy once the king and queen is registered, so that we can pair them together. So we'll have some kings and queens and buddies that are just loose. They just didn't request anybody. We'll make sure that we get them paired up right. And then from there, we'll move over. There will be a small opening right here. Sorry, it got loud. There will be a small opening right here at the bottom where it says registration. There's like a line straight to boutonnieres and corsages. We're gonna have one of those partitions opened up, so we don't have to go back in the main hallway. We can just go straight through it there. So once you get registered, you got your buddy, then you can go ahead and get them all set up, boutonnieres, corsages, and then you can get your night going. All right, and then I will pass it off to Miss Catherine.
Thank you. So next slide. Dun, 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 dun. After that one. Yes, there we go. All right, so we're going to talk about interacting with your buddy, or if you're volunteering and you don't have a buddy per se, interacting with them in whatever capacity you're volunteering in. So we want all the kings and queens to know that they are the most valuable and important people in the room. They are the stars of the night. They are the people that we're there to support. So we want to make it the best experience possible for them. We want the kings and queens to know that they're designed, called, and gifted by God. They are just as wonderful and incredible as anybody else in that room, probably a little bit more that night because it's their special time. And then we're going to use what's called people first language. And what that means is simply that when you're talking to another person about your buddy, you're going to use words that encourage them, that lift them up, that do not stigmatize or label them. So on the next slide, there are some examples of person first. So a person with disabilities versus a disabled person, or a person with special needs, a person in a wheelchair. So the person is first. Sorry about the P's, guys. The word person is usually first. Who happens to have a disability? Who happens to be in a wheelchair? Who happens to have a visual impairment, or whatever it might be? A person with autism, a person with short stature. Typical kids, yes, Melissa's raising her hand for shortness. Typical or kids without disabilities. So those are also comfortable words for most people. If there's a question about what to say, always just put the person first. Think about how you would feel if, you were trying to, I'm a person who, I have a visual impairment. I need to wear contact lenses. I'm a person who is visually impaired. Do not identify the person as their disability, because, you wouldn't want to be known as the headache person. That's not nice. On the next slide are some things that we kind of throw around sometimes. People use these words, and they can be kind of hurtful or embarrassing or awkward. So any of these words, just try not to use those. It's pretty, you can say a person with something versus labeling them as you are this. Any questions about that? Pretty straightforward. And that's a good principle for life in general. All right, next slide. So if you're offering assistance to someone, it's really nice to say, hey, would you like some help? Instead of just jumping in there and trying to help them. Maybe they don't want help. Maybe they know how it works best, or maybe they just want to try to do it by themselves, whatever. But if you see someone that might need some assistance, just ask first. See if they even want help. And address them like you would anybody else. Hey, I see you're having a hard time getting your wheelchair through the door. Can I help you? You want me to hold the door? What do you want? It's acceptable to offer a handshake during introductions. Even, I'm trying to read this, even if they have limited mobility. So obviously, you're just going to accommodate wherever you can. So if they're having a hard time extending, and then you're just going to, maybe it's a high five, maybe it's a little short handshake, whatever. You don't have to alter your voice or speak differently than you do to anyone else or in a childish manner. If there's an interpreter present, if there's someone that's hearing impaired or speaks only Spanish and you don't speak Spanish and they happen to have someone there that's interpreting for you, you don't look at the interpreter, you look at the person with whom you're speaking. And the temptation is to talk to the interpreter, and then that person you're talking to is no longer in the conversation. So always look at your conversational partner and let the interpreter do their job. And then we kind of, this last one, don't lean on anybody's wheelchair. I don't know where that one came from, but maybe we had an accident. I don't know. Just respect this bubble. The wheelchair is a part of the person's bubble, so don't be hanging on it. That'd be like hanging on somebody's shoulders. So, and then on the next slide, if there's a service animal, I'm sure you guys know this because service animals are everywhere now. You always ask first before you interact with the animal. You probably don't need to touch the animal at all because they are working animals. But if you do, just say, hey, is it okay if I say hello to your dog? If the person with whom you're speaking has a visual disability, and I thought this is really clever, just identify yourself. Hey, it's Catherine. We met at your house last week, so that they know who's in their environment, and anybody else that's with you. Just kind of help them know what's in their environment. Be patient if the person with whom you're speaking has trouble understanding you, and don't get frustrated or raise your voice in an unpleasant way. So we know unpleasant voices anywhere, anytime, that whole entire night we're going to be kind. And that goes for talking to other volunteers and other staff as well. So in terms of, any questions so far? So far, so good? Any thoughts? Did anybody have any experiences last year in this regard that they would like to share? No? That's good. Okay. Next slide is preventing and handling uncomfortable situations. So sometimes, like we talked about, the music could be loud, and maybe your person gets it's too much, and they got to get a break. They're a little overstimulated or uncomfortable. Again, ask, how can I help you? You seem like you're a little frustrated. Can I help you? Or this seems like it's really loud. Would you like to change places? Try to figure out what might be disturbing and help them reconcile that. Some signs of overstimulation would be, and these are pretty obvious ones, yelling, screaming, crying, fidgeting, fearful looks, and or aggressive behavior. But it can also be just that they're not having a good time. They're just kind of standing there and they're wide-eyed and they're, I want you to relax and have fun, but if this is not the room for you, let's try another place. Let's go somewhere different. Maintain your composure and speak kindly. So what tends to happen is somebody gets a little, and then you get a little anxious, and then it escalates because you're feeding off of each other. So if you see someone who is struggling with that anxiety, if you will, the best thing you can do is just be really calm and cool and talk quietly and, hey, maybe don't even touch. Just, what can I do to help you? You look like you're a little stressed. What can we do differently? Never go off alone with one of the guests. Make sure you maintain physical boundaries and don't in any way encourage a guest to view you as their boyfriend or girlfriend. You are not their date. You are their buddy. And that word was chosen very carefully so that you're just friends out having a good time and there's no confusion about what's going on here. We're all clear. And for the most part, they're all clear on that too. But, you want to make sure those lines stay understood. And the idea of not going off alone, not just from that dating perspective, if you will, but also just for safety's sake. You want to be in the mix of all the people, having a good time. And if you need to be apart, but still in the midst of people, that's okay. There may be some difficult situations that come up. Parents and caregivers can be called by the staff. So like Christian was saying, they'll have emergency numbers on the back of their name tags. We want the parents to feel like their family members are having the time of their life. So we don't want to call that number for any little nitpicky thing, okay? Try to help your person engage and have fun and find what makes them the happiest. If they want to sing karaoke all night long and it's the same song every single time, that is okay. It is their night. They can do whatever they want. If they want to go eat Chick-fil-A at the table and just watch everybody dance, you do you. That's great. But if they get to a place where they are obviously having significant difficulty and you feel like, gosh, maybe a parent would be a good idea, find a staff person, find a volunteer, come to the respite room, which was in that far hallway, and say, hey, we need a place to calm down. Do you think it's a good idea to call mom and dad at this point? And then sometimes maybe someone gets feeling sick or something, and they just need to go home. Obviously, that would be a good thing to do, is contact the parents. There will be police officers, uniformed officers will be present to assist as needed. Hopefully, they're just there to kind of keep things cool. But they are there if you need them, as are the EMT station, which is going to be right next door to the respite room in that far meeting room hallway. And there'll be signs, there'll be big, have these really cool, like huge TV screen kind of signs hanging down from the ceiling, marquees. And we're going to have them programmed to say, this is the respite room, this is the dancing room, this is all that good stuff. So it'll be easy to find your way. And then the respite room is a place where you can bring your buddy and just chillax. We're going to have, fun things that they like to do, puzzles and coloring and all kinds of sensory bins and a couple of big beanbag chairs and just things where they can have quiet. It's very quiet at that end of the building. So we'll have quiet, and there'll be things that they can calm down and enjoy doing until they want to rejoin the party. And then this last slide, there it is. There's something called abuse, neglect, and exploitation. So hopefully this is not even a part of anything we'll see or do that evening. Obviously not do, but hopefully you won't see it either. But just to be aware that sometimes people act inappropriately and they can hurt our friends, and things like inappropriate touch that is sexually oriented, or yelling at someone with the intent of making them feel bad about themselves, emotional abuse. Physical abuse obviously is a kind of abuse and neglect. Neglect would be, this person needs their medication at this time and I don't really feel like giving it to them tonight. No, that's not okay. They need what they need, and you need to be helping them with those needs. And then exploitation is taking advantage of that person's resources and using it to their own personal gain. Obviously, all of these things are terrible and horrible, and we don't want to see or hear any of that. But just to be aware, if you happen to, not just at this event, but any point in time, notice someone that has unusual injuries or has unusual disappearance of funds in their account, or they seem to be emotionally withdrawn when they used to be really gregarious and outgoing. Those are common signs of abuse, neglect, and exploitation, and those need to be reported, and there is the number up there, and you can even just Google it. So the abuse hotline, if you don't happen to have a pen to write that down. Excellent idea taking a photo there, sir. Thank you very much. So that's kind of the